To finish up with Henry and Eileen, I just wanted to point out something interesting I stumbled onto recently. I felt kind of stupid for not realizing this a lot sooner, actually, but the more Eileen gets hurt, the more dramatic the cutscenes toward the end are, and the more interesting her interaction with Henry is. They actually seem closer. Now here's a little montage of what I've always gotten, because I tend to play on easy and I never let Eileen get hurt.
His parents just threw him away, right after he was born. I've gotta help him.
Henry? Are you okay? It's Walter. He's crying. I'm going back, Henry. To the room where he is. We're the only ones. The only ones that can stop him.
Here's what you get if Eileen is about halfway possessed.
That boy. He's coming in. He really thinks that room 302 is his mother. I've gotta help him. You okay? It won't help that boy. I'm going back, Henry Townsend. To the room where Walter Sullivan is. We're the only ones. The only ones who can stop him.
And here's what happens if she's completely possessed.
Mommy? Mommy? Why won't you wake up? Henry? Mommy? That boy. I have to help him. Mommy? Why did you leave me? Mommy? I'll wake you up. I will.
Story and character-wise, I like the middle one best. Henry doesn't get any more dialogue, but he seems to care a lot more about Eileen, or at least he's showing it more. And she leans on him more and doesn't abuse him. This is actually the kind of thing I would have wanted to see more of in this game, and it would have been nice if I didn't have to let Eileen nearly get ripped apart to get it. So I think I've mentioned it enough times by now that Silent Hill 4 references Silent Hill 2. Walter Sullivan is the biggest example. There's also the superintendent of South Ashfield Heights, who just happens to be the dad of James Sunderland from Silent Hill 2. Unfortunately, they don't really do a lot with that. His existence is pretty much just a shout-out to Silent Hill 2, and that's about it. I wish they gave him a chance to interact with Henry more. There might have been an interesting dynamic, with Henry being about the same age as James was when he disappeared. But the only time we see Frank is when he's trying to get into Henry's apartment and talking with Eileen a little. He does say this one big gem of awkward dialogue, though.
There are a lot of strange things in this world. The umbilical cord I keep in a box in my room. Lately it's started to smell terrible.
Huh? Umbilical cord?
Oh, well, I forget I said anything.
Oh, well, when you put it that way. There's a picture hanging on Henry's wall that was given to him by Frank. Since the description states that James was never heard from again, people tend to take that to mean that Silent Hill 2's in-water ending is canon. But, well, if you want to believe that, it's your choice, but I don't necessarily see it that way. Considering the big reveal in Silent Hill 2, I think it's safe to say that if James survived the experience, he would cut off all ties with anyone he knew. He'd probably go live somewhere else under a different name. Which may or may not be sadder than the in-water ending, depending on how you look at it. But I'd like to think that he at least survived and had a chance at getting on with his life. I'm sappy like that. But my point is, no matter what ending you go by for Silent Hill 2, James would probably disappear anyway, so I don't consider this an admission of James's death. This game has extras, but after Silent Hill 3, they're a little disappointing. Aside from the ubiquitous chainsaw and other crazy weapons, Eileen can get an Uzi, there are sexy outfits for Cynthia, like she needed one, and Eileen, both complete with jiggle physics. And that's it. And I find this a little disappointing. And it's not so much that the women are wearing sexy outfits, though they are lacking in creativity, and it was obviously done more for fan service and for fun in general, like the alternate outfits in Silent Hill 3. It's more that, well, Silent Hill games have a pretty decent female following. There are a lot of good-looking guys in the Silent Hill universe, and trust me, it does not go unnoticed. Just look up any of them on DeviantArt. Just make sure the filter is on. And so it kinda sucks that we got the Shaft here. I'm not saying it should be like what they did with the female characters, just, I don't know, put Henry in a tux or something.
My name is Townsend. Henry Townsend.
Give us female fans some love too, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, sadly there is no joke ending like, well, pretty much all the other games. Apparently there was going to be a UFO ending because if you use Action Replay or something like that to start the game with all the items, you'll find channeling stones in your inventory, along with a courtyard key and red oil. A Glauftus? I wonder what that would have been used for. Unpossessing Eileen, maybe? Either way, all this was obviously scrapped at some point, which is a shame. Silent Hill 4 was influenced by a lot of media. A novel called Coin Locker Babies, which is a surreal story of two boys who were both abandoned by their mothers during infancy and locked in coin lockers at a Tokyo train station, and the difficult and strange lives they lead. I haven't read it myself, but going by the descriptions I've read, it's pretty easy to see how Walter Sullivan's beginnings were inspired by it. It's Japanese, of course, but it has been translated into English, in case you might be interested in checking it out. There's also apparently a movie being made. Of course, Jacob's Ladder has inspired pretty much all the Silent Hill games in various ways, but Silent Hill 4's opening is very similar to a deleted scene from Jacob's Ladder, not to mention the head twitching. Apparently the short story by Stephen King, 1408, had some influence on the game, with the whole concept of being trapped in a room with weird stuff going on. Funny thing about 1408 though, I saw the movie after playing Silent Hill 4 and found the similarities really interesting. But then I read the story and found that the movie has a lot more in common with Silent Hill 4 than the story does.
It just ain't as real as it's
I plan on going into that a lot more in a later video, but for now, I just wanted to point that out. Some other things that inspired Silent Hill 4 that I'm not that familiar with are the novels House of Leaves and Rosemary's Baby, and the Twin Peaks series. And here are a few movies that just flat out remind me of Silent Hill 4 in some ways. They may or may not have influenced it, this is just my observations, maybe stuff to check out if you're a fan, if nothing else. The sale involves someone, in this case a child psychologist, going into the mind of a serial killer where she ends up unlocking his past and is confronted by the innocent and violent sides of his psyche. Sound familiar yet? Also, that scene with the horse was awesome. I'm just saying. Freddy Krueger draws sleeping people into his dream world so he can stalk and kill them, which isn't too different from what Walter Sullivan does to his later victims. Walter's world isn't a dream world per se, but same effect pretty much.
That if you get killed here, then you die in the real world too.
Another similarity is that both killers are dead before the beginning of their respective stories. Walter killed himself partly because he knew it'd give him supernatural power. Freddy was killed by others, but he also knew that it'd give him an advantage.
Hello?
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
What?
Charles Lee Ray, that's pre-doll Chucky, was a ritualistic serial killer, though he was into voodoo. That's enough similarity right there, but check out this scene in the first Child's Play movie where they find his home, and the furniture is made out of female mannequin parts. Kinda reminds me of all the female mannequin parts scattered throughout Walter's world. In Walter's case, he's misogynistic. Not sure why Charles Lee Ray would have something like this. He's many things, but misogynistic doesn't seem to be one of them. Maybe he had an interest in dolls. There's even a bit of a resemblance. So basically, Walter is a combination of Freddy Krueger and Charles Lee Ray with a bit of Dr. Faustus thrown in. That's fucked up. By the way, Silent Hill 4 did leave a bit of its own legacy behind in the form of one track on DDR Extreme. It's a dance remix of Your Reign, starring Cynthia of all people, who seems to be channeling Jennifer Lopez. So I've spent a lot of time talking about how this game had a lot of potential, but there were some things it could have done better. I would love to see them take another crack at it and give the story the attention it deserves, but I'm not holding my breath. Then I figured that some kind of novelization from Henry's perspective could be awesome. It could give him more depth, give you some idea of what he was thinking about, help you understand his motivations, stuff like that. So I wrote one. It's called Silent Hill 4 Introspection, and, well, it attempts to do all that stuff I just talked about. I also give Walter more dialogue, without turning him into some kind of cliché villain, I think. Tried to give the supporting characters a little more depth, and I kind of expanded on the relationship between Henry and Eileen. Some may think I overdid it, and I admit I took it a little further than I intended. Sometimes when you're writing, the story can take on a life of its own, but I think it works in context. Considering I'm not a real serious writer, I've gotten a surprising amount of positive feedback on it. It ended up on TV Tropes page for fanfic recommendations. That was pretty cool. And a few people have actually recommended it to me in the comment section of my videos, not realizing that I was the one who wrote it. That tickled me. Technically, it's still a work in progress. I wanted to have it finished before now, but I just haven't had time. It's got a beginning, middle, and end, and it's up there so you can read it, but I'm currently in the process of rewriting it and basically polishing it up. I'll put up some kind of update video when it's done. Link is in the description if you want to check it out. To those who insist on carrying on this seething hatred for Silent Hill 4, get over it. Let me explain why I feel justified in saying that. I know everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and if you just don't like the game or even hate it, fine. That's not what I take issue with. There's a difference between having a hatred of something in a way that's constructive, and then there's just being petty. Let me give you an example. I am one of those people who hate Zelda 2. I'm not going to bother going into why because it's not important right now. But basically, Zelda 2 tried a lot of new things, and some of those things failed. But Nintendo learned from its mistakes, and the games that followed went back to feeling more like the first one. So, while I don't like Zelda 2, in the end I don't really care, because it didn't have much of an effect on the franchise as a whole. I don't like it, so I just don't play it anymore, and it's barely a blip on my radar at this point. The end. Silent Hill 4 is a similar case. It tried new things that people didn't like, and while I don't like the two games that came after it, I think we can all agree that Silent Hill 4 basically did nothing to ruin the franchise as a whole. Almost nothing from Silent Hill 4, even the things it did right, carried over into later games. If anything, the new games seem to pretend like it doesn't exist. So I just don't see the point in going off on long-winded rants about this game. What's the point, you know? Why care so much about this one bad game in particular? It's attitudes like this that have done a great disservice to the series, in my opinion. Fans pissed and moaned about every little thing that wasn't exactly like the previous games. The powers that be listened to them, and the result is 2 games in a row that feature Pyramid Head and sexy nurses. No substance, but plenty of bending over backwards to please whiny fans who can't stand it whenever something new and different is tried. On the other hand, I will defend to the death my reasons for actively hating the Silent Hill movie. Unlike Silent Hill 4, it did have an effect on the franchise as a whole. You know what? I've kind of made this rant before, and probably will again, but to sum up, the movie reintroduced Pyramid Head and sexy nurses into the franchise, and that's bad. Silent Hill is a series that is supposed to be unique. It's supposed to be unafraid of trying new things. I think some fans forget that this is what pulled us into it in the first place. Lately, it's become almost nothing but fan service. Ironically, Shattered Memories, despite involving all the characters from the original game, is the only creative title to come out since Silent Hill 4, and it does renew my faith in the series. Let's just hope they can keep it going. Well, that about does it for this episode on Silent Hill 4. I think I've pretty much exhausted my opinions on this one. Short version, it's got its flaws, but it's worth playing. Give it a chance.
There's still time.
That's it for now. See you next time. You gotta be shitting me!
Don't go out. Bayless!
Oh yeah? Lee's mom is gonna kill you for getting blood on her door.
Oh shit.
forest night. Children dance the waltz, they laugh, whispering hand in hand, just like children like to do. Their eyes, what are they looking for? White dress flutters the beat.
Oh. There it is.
He's a peeping Tom.